Welcome to this episode of Positive Motorsport Podcast. I've got a very special guest with me today from, and I need to read this piece of paper because it's a very long title, from the F1000 Junior British Rally Championship. That's the Rally Championship for 14 to 17 year olds. Introduce yourself.
Hi everybody. Well, my name's Tony Bilham, and for my sins, I am the coordinator of the championships that Kevin's just mentioned to you, predominantly promoting the motorsport of rallying for 14 to 17 year olds.
Behind the podcast production today, we've got Kat Lund in the office, so everybody say hello to Kat. During this episode, we're going to talk all about the championship, find out about the history, but also discover what's new for 2024. And if you're thinking of joining this championship, you're going to be, basically, this is the place to be to get all the information that you'll need to sign up, join in, whether that's as a fan, a spectator, a marshal, maybe you want to get involved in even sponsoring the championship, and of course competing. And we'll tell you all about it. So here we go. Good starting point is to just look back now, right at the beginning, where the championship started, what it's all about. But don't worry, I will come back to myself and Zach's journey and what's it like to be, a father, a family that are looking to get involved with this championship and take your son or daughter into the championship. So, but first of all, before we do that, what's your actual position, Tony? And give me a quick overview of what the organising team's all about.
Okay, well, my actual position is officially the coordinator of the championship. Unfortunately, recently, due to a lack of other bodies within the club in roles, it's taken on quite a bit more than it really needed to do. But predominantly to organise the events, to organise the people getting there and to make sure that they've got everything that they need. And they've all, in fact, completed the right training and got the right qualifications and licences to be entitled to take part.
Let's go back a few years, I think 15 years. This all started with a dream and a vision from a rally driving family who wanted to start a championship, because prior to this you couldn't compete if you were any younger than 14 years old in the UK for a competition for rallying. So that's where the idea of the championship came about. Tell me how it first started and how long has it been going?
Well, as the Formula 1000 Rally Club, I think, started in 2004. I think I'm right with that one. Which was predominantly to promote a cheap form of motorsport, in that all the cars were 1000cc cars. They were cheap to build, cheap to run, etc. This was started by Tristan Dodd. Coming up, we started the Junior Championship in 2009, but it was without Tristan Dodd, none of this would have happened. The amount of banging on tables, banging on doors, refusing to take no for an answer that he endured prior to getting the championship running, which started in 2009, was just immense. And like I say, without that, and his co-part up in Scotland, because there is a Scottish championship as well, a guy called David Barlow, or Digby, as he was well known. Again, he was paramount in getting things happening in Scotland. Very, very sadly, Digby passed away in 2023, but his passion, along with Tristan, for getting youngsters into rallying was just immense.
Brilliant. Now, I've done some things with my son on the basis of doing early driver experiences, at race tracks where you can drive supercars, you learn to drive a car and get involved with, let's say, motorsport or track type driving. But this is completely different. At the heart of it, the core of it, for people that don't really understand, it's not really for beginner drivers, because the guys or the kids have got to know how to drive before they can compete. The key to this is competition, isn't it? It's being timed against the clock.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, there are many places, as you rightly say, that you can go. You can buy track time, you can buy experience days, whatever, for young drivers, and that's been around for quite some time. But it is getting them into the art of competition and everything that's involved with it. And there is a structure that we need to go take them through to get there, which is an element of training, both from Motorsport UK and from the club itself. But it is fundamentally bringing them into line with competition and all that's involved with that.
And I guess there's been many people, I mean, there must be hundreds now of families that have been involved over those years. I'm new to this because my son's only just got to 14, but I'm an ex-rally driver. Or actually, I don't know why I said that. I'm still rallying. So I'm a rally driver. I've been around it for years. I've organised championships. I do sort of understand the sport inside out. And I'm very aware that I've met people that are doing this championship that have no knowledge of, or prior knowledge of motorsport. So for them, it must be a really daunting journey. Because although I think I know a lot about the sport, I've seen the junior championship, and you know, I love what it's been about when I've watched it from a distance over the years. But now I'm actually involved in thinking about what car do I need to buy, what safety equipment, how do you get a competition license, how do you enter an event, why would you even want to enter an event in comparison to maybe you could buy a car and do a test day. There's all sorts of things to consider which we'll definitely go through. But structure-wise, just give me a rough idea of what type of cars can enter, what are the basic rules?
Okay. All the cars that they have to comply with a number of regulations. First of all, Motorsport UK regulations, which are the strict safety regulations as required of the build of the car, the safety equipment in the car, the clothing that the driver and co-driver must wear, crash helmets, everything like that. Now that is governed by Motorsport UK. The championship dictate what cars can be used. So all the cars that have to be used in the championship have to be sub 1000cc cars. So basically 1 litre cars. Predominantly when the championship started, it was Micras, Citroen C1s, Peugeot 107s and derivatives of. And we've had a few others along the way. Things now are creeping in like the VW Ups and the Skoda Citygos. But predominantly it is sub 1000cc cars. So I suppose really shopping cars in one respect, although that when you see these out on the stages, they're anything but shopping cars, believe me. So that is the fundamental basis of it, that it was basically a budget form of motorsport, keep it as cheap as possible.
And these cars are completely standard as far as engine and transmission and...
Yeah, indeed. There is nothing allowed to be done with the engine. If you have an engine problem, you should replace it with one from a scrapyard, not go out and build something. So there are certain bits that can be done to enhance performance with things like air intakes, things like that. Suspension can be modified and brakes. But again, it's controlled. You can't fit aftermarket parts. They have to be things that have come off a similar car or something else within that car range.
And looking at this, I mean, basically standard car as far as engine's concerned. I did consider building a car at the beginning, but now that the championship's been around for so many years, there are lots and lots of cars out there that you know, other families have got for sale. They've put the time and effort into building them. So that's one beauty of this championship now. You're not starting from scratch.
Indeed.
It's quite easy to get out there and get a car that's already built. So if you've little experience, yep, maybe that's one route in. I guess the other route is, do you have people that would speak to potential families about running a car for the events?
Indeed, I mean we've had people. We had until recently a technical officer within the club, and that's what he was there to do, was to assist people. But there are cars out there. We go through things, peaks and troughs with the numbers of prospective competitors, but at times there are a shortage of cars. But some people are still building new ones. With a family that started this year, the Marriotts, and Thomas and his dad built the car over the winter, and they've sort of grown with it as time's gone on. So there's two options available, but I think what people are finding now is that the demand for the junior cars is so high that they're able to buy a car, run it for 3 years, and basically get the money back on the investment that they've made with the car. And I think you'll know from your history, it is genuinely cheaper to buy a car than build one.
Yeah, it is, and people have put experience in. But what I would say of that is that for some people, there's going to be a lot of enjoyment in building cars, and people have asked me and said, "Oh, Zach's going rallying and driving, and what do you want? I'm a driver. I'm not really a mechanic, and everything I do in motorsport has been about being in the driving seat generally." But actually, when I've come to look at the experience I can pass on to my son, I've thought about it. And I'm not too bothered about the driving experience. I think it's great team building. He's going to learn about engineering. He has to learn about media. He has to learn how to enter the rallies. He has to deal with adults. And I think all those life skills that can be offered to him as being part of this championship, even getting on with the other drivers, I like all that. And it's something that's sadly missing in karting in my experience, because that's ruthlessly competitive, very expensive, and generally speaking, you're pretty quickly made to feel like a loser, because there's obviously only one winner in a race, and it tends to be the same top 3 people. So everybody else runs in a pack. Whereas I think with rallying, just generally, you're not competing to beat somebody. you're all trying to go through the same experience.
Indeed.
And all these young drivers have come together, and from outside at least, it seems to me there's a lot more to be gained from the experience rather than trying to stop another driver's performance in order to win. It's not all about winning, is it?
No, not at all. It's all about taking part. And I think, as you touched on there, the element of the family time. Because so many families are involved and brothers, sisters that come along, maybe some of them under duress, I don't know. But seriously, the families that have come along, have grown with us, and they start with us at 14, and we see them come as, I don't want to use the word kids because that sounds wrong, but young people, and they leave as adults, really. That's the thing, by the time they're 17, and they've gone through this roughly 3-year process with the championship, but it is all about the camaraderie of it as much as anything. And the drivers and everything get on so well. There's quite a bit of mickey taking out of each other and various things. And it's great to see. It really, really is.
And I've been impressed. If there's anybody watching this that's already doing the championships, I've looked out, I've seen what the other young drivers are doing, and there's most of them, and some very notable efforts by young men that I'm really proud to look at. And I think you've done an outstanding job on Facebook and the social medias and taking photos and going out and even getting sponsors and things like that. And I'm thrilled to be able to be involved in that. I think that's a really positive thing to pass on to your children. And I'll give a shout out as well. There's a big amount of girls in the championship now.
Indeed,
yeah,
indeed, and that's very, very welcoming to see. Both co-driving and driving, and it really, really is. This championship is open to absolutely anybody. Despite sex, gender, ethnicity, whatever. And we've had many, many different types of people through the championship.
You've just got me on a really good point there, which is co-drivers. The one thing in rallying that makes it different to all of the forms of motorsport, you've got somebody sat next to you.
Indeed.
I'm going to call them kids because Zach's a kid, he's only 14.
Yeah.
From that point of view, they haven't really got the maturity to deal with a rally. And you've got a really good, solid basis of who is sat next to them. So give me some of the basics of this co-driver doesn't actually drive.
Nope.
But they're instrumental in their performance and safety. So, yeah.
I mean, yourself that a co-driver never gets credit for anything that they do. Even in, many forms of rallying, even probably WRC, they're just the person that sat at the other side. But realistically, they're everything. They're the office manager, they're the mentor, the person that keeps them calm when things might not go exactly the way that they want it to go. So they are instrumental in it. But again, they have to meet strict criteria to be able to co-drive for a junior driver.
And what's that?
Okay, well that is, they have to be at least 21 years old. They have to be eligible to hold, I've got to get this right now, the latest, the RS National Stage co-driver's licence. They have to be DBS checked, data barring system, which is paramount. And they also have to hold a full UK driving licence. So we haven't experienced, we haven't got 14-year-olds sat with 14-year-olds. The minimum age for a co-driver is 21.
There's two other elements that you missed there. One of them is really important, I think, is I wanted to be co-driving for my son.
Yes.
But that's the thing, you can't, there's some rules about fathers can't co-drive for their own sons. Tell me what that's about. Why is that?
I think really, that's been in from day one. I think it was just the fact of you don't want a father egging his son on because somebody else may see it. We're all competitive. I'm the same. My son competed, and you want them to do the best. And I think the danger is them getting egged on too much by a parent and putting themselves in danger, because the whole thing, the paramount thing with the junior championship is safety of our competitors, whatever we look at doing. So that was always been there. Brothers and sisters can co-drive, but it's purely parents or guardians that aren't allowed to do it, and it's just because of that. What we've gone back to is keeping the atmosphere within the car as calm and collected as possible, and it may not happen with a parent in there.
On reflection, as much as I wanted to be, co-driving, trying to give your own. Well, I gave Zach some driving lessons and quickly realised that I probably shouldn't be in the car with him. It only causes friction. Also, there's another element. I believe the co-drivers have to have a competition licence to be able to drive. So they need a driver's competition licence.
No, not now. That is something that caused problems. It was originally within the script of the championship. The issue with that was we were finding that we could only get older drivers. We could only get older drivers to co-drive. The paramount thing is to try and get people that are going to grow together. If they're going to progress through rallying and into motorsport, is to get people that, you know, we had 60-year-old people co-driving for juniors, and it was never going to have a future. So over a period of time, we've managed to get that to a more structured level where they don't have to have the driver's license, but they still have to have that amount of qualifications, or they're not allowed in the car.
It's nice to see that, because to be fair, I think a 21-year-old or a 25-year-old co-driver wanting to build experience, there could be nothing better. And let's face it, at 25, you're an adult. You know, you can have kids yourself. So, you know, I think anything above 21 is a great opportunity for young people to be involved in the championship.
Just going back to what you said earlier, we have got plenty of parents who daren't get in the car with the young drivers. We keep saying, you know, test days or whatever, should go on, I'm not getting in there. So there is the other side to it as well. I don't think some of them really want to be in there.
I'll go back to, if somebody's ringing you up, what's the typical first thing they say to you when they approach the championship?
We want to get involved and we can't find anywhere of how to do it. And it is something that's been quite bad, and it's been quite prevalent over the years, and we keep trying to get over it. We keep trying to find ways to make it easier for people to get involved. But at the end of the day, I think it's just down to publicity. And I make no excuses, it's something that we do fail on. It's quite hard to do, but they ring up, they come with the question, then we just take them through the process. And obviously the first thing that they need to do is to get in touch with Motorsport UK and buy the Rally Starter Pack.
So we'll try not to use too many acronyms. And the MSA, what we mean by that is Motorsports Association of the UK, and that's the governing body. So if you look online, you may well get to the governing body first. But there's a couple of other ways that I found in my experience of rallying that people do start to go down the path to get involved in motorsport. One of them, if they're lucky, is they enter a motor club. We'll talk about that in some next. And then the other most common one is to get involved in a rally school. And there are quite a few drive experiences cropping up either at race schools, racetrack, track days, rally schools, even dedicated rally schools, and even off-road circuits and young drivers clubs. So there's all sorts of ways online that young drivers could go and get involved in motorsport. But when it comes to rallying, which is this thing about being timed against the clock in your own car and doing a championship, then they have to come to you. You're the only people in the UK that are looking after this, which I'm then going to say is the first thing they should do is approach you and join your rally club, not the championship, but join the rally club. Am I right in saying that? Yeah,
indeed. I mean, the Formula 1000 Rally Club is the only club that has a permit to run junior rallying. That, again, is issued by Motorsport UK without going into the acronyms. So they are the governing body because they provide the insurance, they provide everything that happens on events. But yeah, to join a motor club, indeed, any motor club, but our motor club, first of all, is always a good point of contact. To get involved, pay your membership fee without getting registered for the championship, and then you get involved, start coming to events, talking to other people, and just letting us know what it is that you want to know.
Yeah, brilliant. And that's the first thing. You know, you're invited down to the events. They're all public. They're all spectators. The juniors take part in rallies which have got senior drivers and very fast cars running at the front of the field, and the juniors tag on at the back. So basically, it's a good day out to go and just watch what the competition's all about. But and that's where I started. We had to contact the MSA, ordered a pack, paid some money, and when that pack arrived, although it didn't have too much information from my point of view, well, it has information in it, but I still think it's difficult to understand. The thing that you do get from it is that the next step is to try and get your competition license, and to do that you have to complete a driving test, which is called a BARDS course. And to do that, the first thing you're trying to do is ring a rally school, one of the ones in the list in your pack. You ring that rally school, and at that point everything becomes a lot easier, because the people that look after the juniors know the championship, they know what the rules are, they've all got experience in doing what they're doing. But at this point, what I should say is that your child needs to drive. These are not learner driver experiences. They need to be able to operate a car. Not in competition, but at least to have clutch control, change gear.
Yeah, I mean, we do find that the majority of people that come along have got some driving experience, even if it's just around the field or whatever, or maybe they've been on a day. But the BARS course, or the British Association of Rally Schools, to give it its full title, is a must, and that's irrelevant whether you're a junior driver starting or a senior. If we started now, we would still have to do a BARS course, and that is where you're assessed on your knowledge of things motorsport, i.e. signage of stages, etc. And also you're assessed on your physical driving.
Yeah, I've spoken to the instructors now. My son is about to do his this weekend,
Okay.
And I had more than an hour's chat with the instructor, which is great information before we go. We're taking our own car, but you can hire a car at the rally school, so it obviously costs a little bit more money if you're using their car, but that's a really good introduction to the day.
Indeed.
And what those guys have said to me is some people do those days and maybe realise it's not for them, but the vast majority go on to then commit and buy a car, start doing the setup and get involved with the championship on that's the point of almost no return.
Yes.
Once you've got your BARS course, you can do it, and then it's usually about buying a car. Although in all fairness, to tell you about my story, we bought a road car first. So
Yeah.
I've had a road car for more than 8 months. I took Zach out and taught him basic driving skills, and just found an airfield that we could use and some private land, and Zach has got basic clutch control and has owned a car, or
Which is
we as a
important.
family have owned a road car. Yeah, and I think that's probably the right way to go about it. So the idea of passing your BARS test and immediately going into a competition, that'll suit some people, but it's not for everybody when they're first starting out. So what else can they do?
I mean, like you say, it's not for everybody, and indeed, we have a minimum height for the drivers. I think it's 1.4 metres, and we have had somebody in the past who was so small. We had the only person we've ever had to physically measure to make sure it was legal. But as you say, it's not about just directly doing the BARS course and then jumping straight into a rally car. A great way of getting time and learning about competition. I've always been a big advocate of auto tests. It's where I cut my teeth many years ago. But there are what we call production car auto tests. Now you can do a production car auto test from the age of 14. You would have somebody in the car with you, which can be a parent in actual fact in that instance. You're limited to, I think it's a 1600cc car, but basically it's a one direction auto test, so there's no reversing on PCAs, but you can gain valuable car control. Now a lot of local motor clubs run these. They tend to be probably in the summer on evenings, but there are plenty of PCAs being run around the country. It's a great way of getting seat time.
And the description I've heard, I've never done one, but I think I understand the concept, which is an auto test, which is called an auto solo, which is a one direction, as in no reversing. It's driving around a car park, you skid around, you go around the course as fast as you can.
Indeed.
That sounds an ideal starting point for a real beginner.
It is. It's just that an auto solo, you've got to be 16 to do an auto solo. The production car auto test, you can be 14. So it's all just about the variety. On an auto solo, you can be on your own in the car, but they assume that by that time you've got some sort of competency to be on your own in the car. PCA or production car auto test, you have to have somebody with you. So that is the difference, but you can do those at 14.
Great. And we can tell there's a lot of expertise being shared now, and everybody's friendly in motorsport. We're only talking about maybe 10, 20 people who approach you during a year, so everybody feel welcome to just get involved with the motor club, and especially if you're at an event, if somehow when you're chatting, people have got time to share when they're at an event, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've found that a lot over the years, that people who've taken the time to come to an event and talk to the people that are there, not just the organising people, but talk to drivers that are taking part, and it's a great way to do that, and it happens quite regularly, does that, I've got to be honest.
Brilliant. We're going to do part 2 of this podcast, which is going to be about the technical regulations, which is a separate podcast. So is there anything else that we need to know? And probably what I'm thinking is what within the championship, just give me the rough idea of the organising structure. Do you do everything? Do you know what? For a real beginner, we've said championship like we understand what that is. What is the job of a championship coordinator?
Well, as we've sort of said earlier on, it's just to make sure to get the calendar of events together, and to try and make sure, I mean, we've got to look at this, that we're a national championship. We're not, a lot of motor clubs are specific to an area and they draw their members from that area. But when we're doing something like this, where we're literally drawing from all over England, we try to make the rounds of the championship, you know, geographically work in the hope that everybody can do at least one event where they don't need a night away. Which again is looking into the costings of it and trying to do that. Not an exact science, but we do try and make it that way, and it does generally work. But on top of that, just, you know, to make sure that everything runs as smoothly as it can, to make sure everybody's happy, and just to be there with advice and help when they need it.
And I guess a big part of the championship is that you enforce the rules, you welcome people to the events, you choose the events and whether they're suitable for the drivers. And also, probably a big part of it, you give out trophies and you allocate points. So you're the one, well, not necessarily the one that decides the results. So in fact, that's a good point. How do you, on a rally, how do you get a result? How's this based?
Well, the results on a rally are based on your time, your fastest time over the number of stages. So if we have an event and there are 6 stages, the driver who has the fastest cumulative time over those stages over the day would win. It's as simple as that. And so on down the line. So it's basically against the clock.
So the individual event does the timing for that event, and then at the end of that event, if you're first junior, second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, you get allocated points.
Correct.
And then during the year, you can do, say, 8 events, you could do 5, and for each of those events that you enter, you get your listed points. At the end of the year, there's a champion.
Indeed, that's the way it works. The scores are calculated on your best 6 scores from 8 events. So you can score on 8 events, and it's your best 6 that will count towards your final end of year score.
Yeah, and that does help because it gives you the choice of which event you might choose to do. And sometimes you're on holiday, do whatever.
Indeed, or it's too far to travel or whatever. So yeah, it gives you that opportunity to pick and choose your events. And some events suit drivers better than others, depending on the actual venue.
Then, from a competition point of view, so let's say now we've entered, I can imagine in the first year very few people go, well, can't be over competitive because they've never done the events before, but on the second and third year they'll be older for a start, they've done the events before, they're used to the championship, then we start getting into the point where things become really competitive. So do you think this is a good championship to learn driving skills? What's good about this championship to help them go to, let's say, the dream of a professional career?
The dream of professional career. That's a big dream for people these days. It's a starting point, and as you say, they come into it in the first year. I think they come in, some people with aspirations that they're going to set the world on fire, and then realise that it's all about seat time. And the people who've got more experience are going to be quicker. It's as simple as that. I mean, classically, when my son started in the juniors, and we'd never been to a junior event before the first one we entered, and we arrived and thought, well, we're not even in the same ballpark as this lot. But by the end of it, by the end of his career in the juniors, he was there. He was up there with them all the time, winning events. So we see that all across the years, and we think that people probably expect too much of the son-daughter, which comes back to the fact of not having parents in the car. But overall, it's a learning curve, and it's a whole learning curve as they grow with the championship and with the car, and they learn the skill, and there is a definite skill, but it is all about seat time.
And the nice thing that I already alluded to, that I'm not in it to win it. It's about growth and, like I say, seat time. And if Zach wants, some type of career in motorsport, then by the time they get to 17, they really need to have a different league to what's going on here, and massive amount of money behind them. But in those early stages of competitiveness, what would you say is you've said it, the seat time is really important. But anything else that you can think of? Because I can guess there's a few being involved in one major championships, but anything else where you've got personal experience of why is it good to be involved in the championship?
I think, as we've touched on briefly again, that you learn from other people, the camaraderie of it, and you're learning to work within a team. Because the whole part of it is a team. Now, whether that's a team of your mum, your dad, your uncle, your friends, or whatever, that is good grounding, that you are all working together for a common end. And that is obviously to do as well as possible. And as you grow, and if you're hopefully successful enough to move into a team in motorsport, then it's really, really good grounding for that.
Yeah, and I've seen that myself, and I'm sure you know examples of it where young drivers have left the championship. One or two that I know are in the World Championship, which is brilliant. Chris Ingram, I can think of, off cuff, and who's currently doing Monte Carlo rally.
Indeed,
and today he's doing the highest level of rallying with, and that's great that he did that within the championship. There are also many other examples where people cut the teeth, decide they want a career in motorsport, and they're working in the World Championship, which includes Tommy Meadows as an ex-driver.
Yeah, ex-driver, ex-competitor with the juniors, which we were talking about, just off camera a while ago. And there are many, many people, but there's also people who've gone through the Junior Rally Championship, but then not stayed in rallying, but gone on to be successful. Maurice Henry, he unfortunately, Maurice, he was in the championship at the wrong time, COVID, etc. But they entered the Ginetta Junior Scholarship, which he won. He did 2 years in Ginetta Juniors, television coverage and everything. And I think this year he finished second in Class C in the British GTs with Team Hard, with the touring car teams. So he's gone on and done very, very well. Louis Price Edwards has this year won the 2023, last year won the 2023 Drift Pro Championship. He always liked getting his car sideways, so that was probably a great way. With others, Will Hunt's gone on to do classic touring cars. You mentioned Chris Ingram, of course, Gus Greensmith as well, who was with WRC with M Sport. And as we look through, there are more and more, and we look through the entries now for like BTRDA events, and we're looking at how many ex-juniors are taking the next stage up into the forest after the 17.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, isn't it? Because the ones doing it for fun, not necessarily seeking a professional career, they're still out there, they're still competing.
Indeed.
They're making up big chunks of current national rallying entry lists. Because, I can think of so many names, but in fact, I think you gave me a statistic to say something like 30 people in the last rally that you looked at had come through juniors, and that's not surprising at all.
It was an awful lot, and it is. And we look at, I did a quick look through the BTRDA entries for last year, and we were looking on average of between 9 and 11 ex-juniors on an event of running probably 100 cars. So we're probably looking at going on 10% of the entries of national events made up of ex-juniors, sometimes more. But
it's a fantastic achievement. So finally, a quick overview of how the club is structured. And that obviously the club runs the championship. So I'm guessing you have a chairman and other people part of the committee. Yeah. What sort of things do they do? The social media website?
I mean, the social media website is a little bit of a joint effort between a number of people. I've got to be perfectly honest on that. And again, it's something which we are working hard to get better, and it does need to be better, and I accept that. But the structure of the club, we have a chairman, a gentleman called Tony Jackson. He was involved with the junior championship right from the start. But Tony's been involved in motorsport for a long time. He's an MS Motorsport UK steward, safety officer for a number of events. His son, Matthew Jackson, is our membership secretary. Matthew was on the Rallies committee at Motorsport UK. And then we go down through myself, the coordinator. Then we've just now been really, really looking at getting 2 new people on board. One is Mark Quayle and the other is Rob Fagg, who are probably both known to a lot of people, but they are resident on the Isle of Man. So it means that they can't actually be at events, but they've taken over 2 pivotal roles in that Mark's taken over the job of secretary and treasurer, which is great because that's something else off my remit. And also Rob's taken over helping with social media and doing the competition scores. So again, something that moves off my list of jobs to do. And then we have other committee members, Steve Kenyon, who's a Rallies clerk of the course. He's on the committee. And then we've 2 ex-juniors, which still come and help on events, Zach Hughes and Alex Holliday, and their dads, Paul Hughes and Ian Holliday. So they're all people with a lot of experience, be it at high level in Motorsport UK or the lower levels, in that they're ex-competitors and can offer great advice to people about their journey when their sons or themselves were doing the championships.
And as I've been talking about or talking to a lot of competitors, I've been shocked with just how many people have been involved in the championship. Either they knew somebody that was doing it, they've been co-driving, they've helped organise, because it just seemed to be like a slight rotation of people getting involved, because every 3 years the bunch of drivers change and then you get new co-drivers, etc. So we're literally talking about thousands of people in motorsport who are supporters of the championship, let's say.
Indeed. It is literally that. It will be over the years that sort of number of people. It's always sad to see people go. I'm going to be perfectly honest, because we've grown together and in a relationship. And in all fairness, this year I'm sure I'm right with this, so somebody will probably shoot me down in flames. But Charlie Matthewson, who is the 2023 champion, I think he's the first person to win the championship when he isn't in his final year, other than when the championship was only 2 years old, obviously. But he's the first person, I'm pretty sure, that's coming back next year to defend his title. And that's exceptional, and that is great. And he's got a big act to follow that he created himself, really. But last year we did have 5 different winners in 4 different makes of cars, so that's something to be said for the championship. So he didn't have it all his own way; he had to fight for it.
We're going to talk about the cars itself in the technical podcast, but it's good that you reminded me there's a big range of cars, and some are quite old. They've been doing the championship for 10 years.
Yeah.
Our car that we chose to buy is actually the championship winning car from last year, which sounds really flash, but actually it's a 2010 car.
Yep.
Many people have driven it before Charlie, and it's probably done more mileage than most that have done the championship. That's really nice that the cars themselves, I believe even the person that built that car in the first place, our car, is still involved with the championship, so I'm looking forward to bumping into the guys that built it originally.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these cars have, there's a lot of names been on the door, so to speak. I mean, Chris Ingram's car is still taking part in the championship. George Lepley's. And I mean, the Micras, which is what started the championship, really, fundamentally, that was the go-to car at the start of the championship. And I mean, those are still going, and they're 23, 25 years old. And they just refuse to die. They are bomb-proof and still remarkably competitive. You have to look at Jack Birch over the last year. He's pedalled that bike like you wouldn't believe, and he's finishing second and third in events. And in fact, he took a win as well. I've got to give credit where credit's due. He took a win earlier in 2023. So there is a vast range of cars, but the more modern ones now are starting to creep in. But we do police how new the car can be.
Yeah. Well, we won't. You use the word police, that's part of the technical regulations. However, on the positive side of the newer cars, let's say, I think it is quite nice that the championship's not staying static with Micras. Nothing against Micras, but they're of an age, and the Peugeots are a bit newer, and then even newer, you can be quite cool and buy a VW up, or and they've not been so predominant in the UK Championship, which reasons you'll give us in the technical regulations, but it's nice to see that there is modern cars in there.
Indeed, it is. I mean, there was a time when we probably regretted not restricting the championship simply to Micras and C1s and derivatives, but once that horse has bolted, there's nothing you can do about it. But it's more, and like I say, we'll talk about this on the technical, it's more a question of keeping the playing field as level as possible, no matter what car you can afford to buy. And that's the crux of it.
Brilliant. Talking about budgets, well, it's a good way to end this part of the podcast. What can you expect to spend? What do you think is needed? And I roughly know what's needed as far as the car's concerned, because let's get it out there that the car cost me about £8,000, which it's a championship winning car.
Yep.
That's as much as anybody would ever want to or need to spend for that type of car. So let's say it's between 5,000 and 8,000 of a championship car.
Yep.
Then some of the newer ones I know are £10,000 maybe plus, but they are brand new cars, and one or two that I've seen are built immaculately and are very, very nice cars, a big investment. But again, it's all about resale value, really.
Yep.
And those newer cars will keep that high price tag for a lot longer than the older cars. But I don't see any of them particularly losing money.
Personally, I think you'll lose more money on a newer car.
Well, yeah.
I think that is the internet, and some of the investment, again, we're not wanting to touch on things we're going to talk about later, some of the investment that was put into some of these newer cars for a junior championship was ridiculous. I'm sorry, that's my personal opinion, and that is why our regulations moved to combat that. I've got to be perfectly honest, there's no secret with that. But I think you hit the nail on the head that you can buy a competitive car for between £5,000 and £8,000. And we're seeing now, that we touched on earlier, that people bought those cars for that amount only 3 years ago. They're getting that return on the car. So from the actual capital investment of your major sort of thing that you need, you're probably going to pretty well get your money back.
I think there probably is a stage 3 to this podcast, and you've touched on it, which is once you've got into the championship, a bit like going go-karting. Pretty quickly, you've driven around for a while. You think you're not that bothered about the times, then you start looking at the times, and then all of a sudden it gets really competitive. And that is the enjoyment of the sport. So being competitive will become really, really serious. But in this element, I was talking about getting into the championship. I definitely think we should talk about the nuances of where speed comes from.
Yep.
Not particularly on this one, but that's definitely another podcast, because it's exciting to me. That's a thrilling part to me. Hopefully Zach can be competitive. Hopefully he'll get interested, and then I'll be able to go into the fine detail of where I think a driver might improve and really fine tune their skills. But that's at such an advanced level. And, as a competition driver, I know that it took me years to even start to think about some of the more serious elements of, whether you have new tyres, second-hand tyres, what tyre pressures, what suspension, those things don't make a difference if you don't know in which direction you're going.
Indeed.
Indeed. That's for podcast 3, I think. But that gave us a rough idea, as far as budget of buying the cars are concerned. How much do you think you need to spend doing the events?
I mean, there are costs that we have no control over, which are entry fees for events, which is what you actually have to pay to take part in the event that's organised by the organising club. So it's nothing to do with the championship. Costs, you've got championship registration fee with us, which I think is currently £140 to register the championship, which obviously that goes towards a number of things that are running the club, providing trophies at the end of the year, etc. I think we're looking now at an average entry fee of around about £300 per event. And on top of that, you've got tyres. Now, tyres currently, it's a controlled tyre that we use for the championship. Everybody has to use the same tyre. The wear rate on them is very, very good. People are quite pleased with what we're using at the minute. But a tyre is rough. I think they're £86 plus that now for the tyres. But you're not needing new tyres every stage. You probably get 3 events out of a set of tyres, probably more. The back tyres really on front wheel drive cars do very little other than sort of follow the fronts. So from that cost, it's not extortionate. It sounds high. It's getting started that is the expensive part of it, when you're having to buy your kit, and you've got to buy your safety kit, your crash helmet, and that's something that you don't skimp on. Your safety equipment is paramount to everybody, and that again is controlled by Motorsport UK, what you have to wear.
Yeah, and that, I'll vouch for that. It's certainly not cheap. And as an older driver, I think a lot of it's unnecessary because we never used to have it. But
no, we didn't. No.
But then
you go down the local motorcycle shop, buy a crash helmet that fitted, get a sticker put on it, and away you went.
Even standard seats when I first competed.
And indeed with me. Yeah. 205 GTI with standard seats in.
Yeah.
They're more comfortable than modern ones, but yeah, indeed.
But then the reality is, it's my son that's in the car. He's quite precious to me, so
it is a lot
to invest.
Safety in this whole championship. We are dealing with young people, and it is paramount to what we do.
So the quick thing of that, they need a race suit, balaclavas, race boots, gloves, crash helmet, hands device. Yeah. And then inside the car, which we talk about in the tech regs, there's a lot of safety equipment that needs to be in date. But that's still a big cost if you start from scratch.
It is.
And what I'm doing is using second-hand, my cast-offs. But that's still not a cheap way to do it.
We are finding that, again, through the club, because these youngsters grow so quick, that in all fairness, don't ever buy them a race suit that fits them when they're 14. Buy them one that's too big, because otherwise you'll be buying one the year after. But there are quite a few second-hand race suits for sale, and again with everything else. I think the paramount one is your crash helmet. Yeah. Like we say, we're joking about that we used to buy them from motorcycle shops, but it has to be a certain type of crash helmet. Make sure it fits properly, and your hands device or your hybrid device, which is to protect your neck in the event of an accident.
And I guess you've got some partners who are willing to give advice and help, specialists in supplying that safety equipment. Yeah,
indeed. I mean, there's a number that you can go to, but they're not necessarily the big people who advertise. I mean, Club and Motorsport and Rob Brooke. I mean, Rob co-drives for, I've got to get this right, I think he's co-driving for Thomas Marriott, but they do tend to move around a little bit. Rob's been very supportive of the championship. West Wales Rally Sport, Johan Lloyd, he was an ex-junior, and his dad, and they're willing to offer advice, and they're all willing to do good deals and help the juniors where they possibly can. So, but again, it's information that will be getting updated on our website in the very, very near future of where you can go for our partners.
Yeah, and I guess that's worth saying that if you're a member of the club and you've already started talking, you'll find out about those things. You'll find out about second-hand deals and, you know, who's got a good offer and what type of equipment you need. So to summarise the budget, as far as the events themselves are concerned, I've put, well, a nominal fee of £500 an event, which I'm hoping to get the entry fee out of. I'm not including fuel, accommodation or anything like that, but hopefully a few £100 as far as maintenance of the car is concerned. And then that does bring us into some of these events that are on the calendar. I know from experience we're going to need at least one night's accommodation out. Some of them are actually 2-day events, so arguably you might need accommodation for 2 nights.
Yep.
And people deal with that in different ways. I've got a car transporter, a trailer, a van. Some people come in motorhomes and sleep on site,
Indeed.
which are allowed to do at quite a lot of these single venues, because most of them are either airfields or racetracks. They have camping facilities, although not necessarily state-of-the-art camping facilities, but they've got basic.
When we're at the race circuits, generally you've got better facilities there.
Yeah, and that's good fun, and I know that some people are doing that. I've also heard of people doing an arrive and drive, which is dad and son jumping in a car, driving from home, and actually going to do the event and driving back home, which...
It has been done. It has been done. There's a risk associated with that, obviously, that should the car have a mechanical failure or anything else, then you've got to struggle to get it back home. But it has happened. But like we touched on earlier, we try and structure the event so everybody has one event that they can do from home without an overnight. Generally, it's one overnight. The Glyn stage at the end of the year is the only 2-day event that we have. But they absolutely love that event because they get stages in the dark on the Saturday night, and it's a big event, and it's a great finale to the season as well. It is our last event of the championship year, and it's a great event to finish on.
Brilliant. So to finally close this part of the episode, I know we've talked a lot about the UK Championship, your championship. There is a Scottish Championship.
Indeed.
So to save confusion when people are seeing different things, you don't have to... There's no difference in being in Scotland, because you could come and do the UK Championship.
Yep.
If you're in the UK, you could go and do the Scottish Championship. Yep. There are some slight nuances as far as cars and regulations are concerned, but all in all, you're not the same, because the events that you're going to are not in the same regions. Yep. But other than that, it's a very similar championship.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just simply the fact that geographically it doesn't work. The Scottish Championship have got the same problem we have, in that the people are spread all over Scotland, but they have some cracking events up there, and that's the Junior Ecos Rally Challenge. Still fundamentally to the same rules. There's a few differences in the technical regs, but they run some great events, and we do get together on events wherever possible. So again, going back to the 2-day one at Anglesey at the end of the year, that's also the last round of their championship. So they do come all the way from Scotland, and with somebody that came from Elgin, I think, and that is a fair drive. But by the same token, you know, we've had competitors who've gone from South Wales up to Scotland, and you can go and do their events, but to score points in their championship, you'd have to register for the championship separately. But we do have guests at each other's events, and you are more than welcome to go and do anything. You don't need any different license for that. You can just put an entry in front of their events and go and compete.
So you could do both championships?
People have. We have had a number of people that have done both championships. In fact, I think Archie Swinscoe did both championships. I think he won both championships as well, which is, you know, all credit to him. So it's just another name that's popped up there. We don't like to name names because you miss somebody out and then finish up offending somebody. But there have just been so many people. But, you know, the organising team, Roy and Rona and Ian up in Scotland, all just as welcoming as we are, and help and advice is always available from them as well.
So, thanks, Tony.
Pleasure.
It's been a great part of this first ever podcast for the Formula 1000 Championship. We'll look forward to doing the other parts in this series, and no doubt there's going to be more of these type of things to come. But the next 2 parts that you should watch, because integral part of the understanding for somebody that's not been involved in motorsport before, it's going to be our technical regulations, even though for me today, technical regulations overview that will come in podcast 2, and we might go on to do podcast 3 on another day, which will involve how do you get the most for your driver. So it's the competitive side of competing. How do you learn to win? And that's what the podcast is going to be called. But for now, we'll just do a quick end by saying what type of experience are doing, or what type of people, families, and drivers are involved in doing the 2024 championship?
Oh, it's vast. I mean, we have people who have come from motorsport backgrounds where the parents have been involved in motorsport, either simply as a marshal or even as part of a manufacturer's team, to people who, by their own admission, know nothing. We've somebody starting this year, but they are completely new to motorsport. It's not the first time it's happened, and they've been quite open and said that we need some guidance to get us through this. But as I say, it's not the first time, and that's what we're here for.
Brilliant. So thanks for watching, everybody. As we say, some people with lots of experience, they're doing the championship anyway. If you guys have listened to this and you've got anything that you want to add, maybe you'll meet me during the year and we'll do some filming together, whatever it is. Please feel free to get in touch with me. I'm Kevin Ferber as part of this podcast, and Tony, you can close by saying where people can get hold of you.
Well, indeed, you can get hold of the Facebook page is Formula 1000 Rally or Junior Rally. That will also take you to the Facebook page. Website is formula1000.co.uk, or you'll find my contact details on the Facebook page. Please drop us an email, pick up the phone. We're only too happy to help.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.